G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Steve Miller from Total Freight Solutions. He's based in beautiful Sunshine Coast, Australia, just north of Brisbane there, a couple of hours, but the business is actually based in Tasmania. So thanks for your time today, Steve.
Morning, Troy. Thank you.
Let's start with how we know each other. So Michael Dennehy, Mick from Collins SBA, and also now working here with Rob and I on Grow a Small Business. He's been working with you for several years and thought you'd be a good guest to have on the cast.
Well, it's nice of him to think that. And he has been working with us for quite a few years now. We've become very good mates as well. He's a great supporter of our business, offers us great advice, we chat a lot about business, a lot about football, a lot about just family. We both had young guys come up through the footy ranks, and Mick's taken a personal interest in the business, but not afraid to give me some advice from a mate's perspective as well. So if we ever need a mediator in our business, Mick's always that guy we go to, because he'll always, as a mediator and as a third person outside of our business, he can offer honest advice, and sometimes it puts our team members into the right space we need it to be just by getting that third party influence, if you like. But he's become a very good friend more than anything.
Yeah, great. Yes, I know you both love sport. We just chatted for half an hour before we hit record. Mick tells me a lot about the discussions you guys have, not just around business, but also sport as well. Yeah,
and it's good. I think, obviously our podcast's not about sport, but I think I like a lot of business things, ethics, the way businesses grow, the way they need to be run from a management level with a team. Big sport now is a business. It's no longer a sport. It's more focused on being a business and how it can make money. And whilst that's not my favourite thing, because I still like old school sport, there's a lot to be taken from businesses. So a lot of the times Mick and I will sort of bridge across to talking about sport when we actually started out talking about business, because there's a lot of synergy there.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Well, we're a freight broker. So a freight broker, just like an insurance broker or a finance broker, we sit between suppliers and customers, and we broker generally the best deal for them, but it saves them having to shop around several different freight companies to get the best deal. So our expertise now sits in that space where we can tailor make a job, we can project manage jobs for clients. And really it takes away, they ring our office, so it takes away the need for them to phone a 1300 number and potentially get a different person every day. We still work very much on I like to say we've got a 1980s business ethic operating with 2022 technology. So, you ring up our business and you talk to the same person that you spoke to yesterday. And that was originally what we did, and it's still very much probably 70% of our business. But then we went into third-party logistics, and we do warehousing and distribution out of our new warehouse in Cambridge. Our larger clients are all Sydney-based, and they send their stock into Tasmania. They send their orders through an EDI program or whatever it might be, and we process those orders, pick them and deliver them either same day or next day throughout Greater Hobart and the northern part of Tasmania. So it's two businesses under the one umbrella, and you could break them apart and operate them autonomously, but we're a freight broker and now delve into that third-party logistics and distribution model.
Yeah, 3PLs are great. A few businesses I've worked with over the years, some of the advice, there's one that launched November last year. I helped them raise capital, Morocco, Miroko. So they've got something that you and I'll probably never use, Steve, but hair colouring, mainly for women managing their greys. I mean, I could probably use it in my beard, but they're doing great. And so one of the first bits of advice I gave them, as I did to Tim Polmere from Flat Tummy Tea, who I had on one of my first episodes, episode 5, I said to both Tim and Yuki and Claire at Morocco, like 8 years apart, but I said, whatever you do, for fuck's sake, do not, or for very long, ship the orders yourself. Leverage a 3PL, because that's not where the value is. It's in marketing.
Yep.
You guys should be focusing on your marketing. So use a 3PL or a third party logistics provider to warehouse and ship your orders. And that's what they both did, and adding tremendous value. So yeah,
Definitely.
that's a good move.
We've done some costing models for clients that have approached us, and we've given them a look at what the cost would be for them to have a forklift, to have a manned area, the lease on a warehouse, and you would find that I believe that the cost of doing it through a 3PL, and this isn't a sales pitch for the podcast, but the analysis we've done would be around the probably 50 to 60% of cost.
Wow.
Doing it through a 3PL as opposed to leasing a facility, having a man, having your own forklift. So it just makes sense, particularly these mainland companies. They're getting their stock to the market if they're ordering early in the morning, their stock's going to the hospitals and the old age care, which is the industry we service, on the same day or next day in the north of the state. Now, it would be so costly for them to service those markets out of Sydney or a mainland facility, and then they've got to pay to get those orders picked in those areas, shipped to Tassie. I guess timeliness is the key issue for them. Their marketing is around, we can get this to you today or tomorrow, and their clients, which are the hospitals and old age care, go, Ripper, that's exactly what we're looking for, because we don't want to hold a huge inventory. Therefore, we can order on a sort of needs-be basis.
Yeah. I think also, apart from the 50% cost saving, leveraging a 3PL when you're big enough and ready, I think the other thing that a lot of people, business owners, miss is the opportunity cost of that distraction of the noise, trying to run your own warehouse and dispatch. At the management level, even that is taking time and focus away from where the value is generated, which, in my opinion, is marketing.
Yeah, absolutely, on their side for sure.
How did you start out?
It's a good question, and it's a question I'm sort of proud of how it started out. I was employed by a major courier firm who we actually use now, ironically, as their agent in Tasmania, and they had a new management structure, and a guy from Scotland flew into Tasmania and arrived here and told me that they were now going to service their market from Sydney. So I didn't have a job. And my wife at the time said to me, well, maybe this is the opportunity. You've always talked about working for yourself. Maybe this is your opportunity to do so. So I sort of had a captive market in that I'd already been servicing many clients under the umbrella of the company that I was working for at the time. So I went and saw all of those clients and said, look, I'm leaving. I didn't badmouth or slander the company I was working for, but the general consensus I got from my client base was, Steve, if you stay in the industry, come and see us. So I thought, okay, here's the opportunity. So I started out. So I got a box of business cards. I bought a phone. I bought a $12,000 Subaru Liberty station wagon from Pickles Auction. I think I borrowed a desk off someone, or got a desk off someone that was throwing it away, and I jumped in my car with a box of business cards and went and started knocking on doors. First year, I made 28 grand. And when you're living in a regional area where you need tank water, firewood, clothes for the kids, school clothes, at the end of the first year, I thought, probably need to go and get a job. I'm not sure this is going to work. But I just didn't want to throw it away. So I had this gut feel that if I kept pushing, at that stage, I'm talking 800 kilometres a week, 75 hours a week, knocking on doors, slowly growing the business. And then all of a sudden it started to grow incrementally, and it was like the second year was not too bad, and the third year became a little more self-sufficient, where you didn't have to worry about whether you could afford a counter meal on a Saturday night. So it was a little tight at the start, but that's how it started. It was like, a second-hand car, a box of business cards, and a phone.
And what year did you start, and how old were you?
I started in 2000. And I was 42.
Yep.
And I actually I was standing up on a boogie board going down the sand dunes at 7 Mile Beach, and I busted my knee in the first month I was in business. So I had to hit up a mate that had an automatic, because I couldn't drive a manual car for 6 weeks because I had my knee in a brace. So there were teething problems at the start.
Do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over the now 22 years?
Look, we sort of went from that $28,000 in the first year, started to push up around sort of couple of $100,000, and then I think our $1 million year was maybe year 5. That was turnover. We brought on a new manager in 6 years ago, in 2016, and at that stage our turnover was around $3.5 million. 2 years ago we pushed that up to 7, and Mark, our branch manager, wanted to get to $10 million in 3 years' time, and we achieved that this year. So we've gone from a $28,000 profit, which was probably a turnover of maybe, I don't know, $100,000 the first year. And this year's our first $10 million year, albeit due to COVID, we've had to cut margins on international freight. So our margins aren't as large as we would like them to be, but our turnover has certainly exceeded what we thought it would be this year. Well
done. Congratulations. That's phenomenal growth.
Yeah, thank you. It was good people. It's about good people, which I'll get to later on, but it's all about, I built it to 2016, and the teamwork that we've had with the people that are in our business have enabled us to grow it to where it is now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And on that point, so you started out 1 FTE yourself. Roughly how many full-time equivalents have you got now in the business?
We have 13 now.
Yep, great.
Which includes myself and my ex-wife, who's still my business partner, but a very good business partner. So we still run the business together.
Yep, great. And when was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
I think the moment I felt like we'd succeeded was, I remember we built a warehouse in Cambridge. We've just built a new warehouse in Cambridge. Prior to that, we had a warehouse. We had a very small warehouse that was 200 square metres. Bought a block of land next door to that warehouse and watched it grow grass for a year. It was the most expensive grass in the universe because it had nothing on it. And built a 1,200 square metre warehouse. And a guy came in one day in a truck, and I'd worked with the guy over many years. And he reversed the truck in, and I said, "G'day, Wes, how are you?" And he said, "G'day, Steve, how you going?" And he looked at the sign on the building. He said, "This is a nice looking place. Mate, who do you run this for?" And that comment, when he said, "Who do you run this for?" I sort of turned around, looked at the sign on the building and went, "This is actually mine. I run this for me." Only then did I jump out of myself. And from then on, I'd pull up outside the warehouse occasionally and stand at the gate and look at the sign and go, "Wow, this is what I created. If I jump out of myself and look at this is a pretty big warehouse." And the business itself is now quite reputable in the industry. The warehouse we've just built and moved into 2 months ago is 3 times the size of the warehouse that I used to look at, to think that the business had become quite successful. But it was that day when that guy drove in and said, "Who do you run it for?"
Yep.
And it was like, I thought, that's a compliment, the fact that he asked who I run it for. So I think that was a real light bulb moment for me.
What does success look like to you?
I love that question. Success to me, I love that question because I like providing the answer to that. Success to me is having the right support in place for my team, so everybody in my business comes to work happy where they're at, goes home happy that they work at that place and don't hate going to work, and all feel like they've got the flexibility, the freedom and the remuneration that they deserve to go to work. I don't measure success in money. I don't measure success in material assets. My accountant probably does, and all the people I've got to pay bills to at the end of the month probably do. So if you go and ask our 13, if I fell off the face of the earth tomorrow and people said, "What would you define as success?" If you stood outside of our warehouse and said, "That looks successful," if it's a warehouse full of people that aren't happy to be there, that's not successful.
No.
But if you walk into the building and ask the 13 people, are they happy to be there each day? And they go, "Yeah, and I've never, ever wanted to leave," that to me is a really, really successful business. And if you want to worry about the money, if you run a business based on that model that supports the people that are in the business, the money will come. The success comes financially, materialistic fashion comes from the development of the people within. Yeah. So I'm really proud. The proudest part of my business isn't the material asset that I look at when I drive past it. It's when I walk in, no one treats me any different. I walk into my business and everybody hangs shit on me as soon as I walk in the door. A bad business is one where the boss walks in the door and everyone goes, better sit at our desks and look like goody two-shoes because the boss just walked in. That's a bad business model. No success there.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
To marketing, I would say marketing is not a strong point of mine. So marketing a fast-growing business, I think be careful of what you do that you think you can do yourself. So if you want to market your business and you don't know, like I'm not great at it. So I ask people where we can leverage more business through marketing. How do we do that? My marketing has been jumping in my car and going and talking to people. Now, that's not a great marketing strategy. If you're sitting in someone's office and they work in marketing and they go, whoop-de-doo, Steve, everybody goes and does that. So word of mouth is a good thing and you market yourself. But marketing a fast-growing business is just make sure that you take time to pull back and use external or third-party people to give you advice on the way through. Because I think I've seen businesses that have grown too fast and all of a sudden they no longer exist. And it's like, was their marketing, was their expenditure on marketing too great? Did they go down the wrong path? It all looked fantastic on face value, but it wasn't that good because if you delve down into what they'd marketed or how they'd gone about it, it became a failure. So it's not a strong point of mine, but my advice to someone would be if you really want to market your business, make sure that if it's not a strong point of yours to get external people in to assist you in that space because it's such an important area of growth. And there's so many different things now with social media platforms, digital copy, online, hard copy. There's lots of things to do. And if it's not your space, outsource that or get some really good advice so that it can help you do it while you're working on it. Because if you don't know about marketing, why work in that space if you're not good at it? Work on what you're good at.
Yeah, totally. And how did you fund the business?
I didn't need to fund the business. I just I didn't take an overdraft. I had 20 grand in the bank. So that's how I funded it. I had my little second-hand Subaru Liberty and I hoped that my clients paid me in 30 days and I hoped that I wasn't going to exceed $20,000 in the first month when I was paying the suppliers. And that's how I funded it. I had $20,000. I forgot about that. The phone, the second-hand car, the desk and the computer, which is now probably big enough to use as a boat anchor.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want to get an overdraft, and I guess did I know what I was doing in that space? Maybe not, but it was like I think back in the day, the old school sales process was it's just a numbers game.
Yeah.
If you knock on 50 doors and 10 people say yes, you've had a good day. So I sort of went out a little bit blind. I guess maybe even a little bit naive, but also with a good work ethic. So I did knock on a lot of doors and put together what I thought was a good offer to customers with regards to how I would service their account and make. There weren't many freight brokers in Tasmania, if any, at the time. So the market was there for someone to say, let me manage your account for you. I'll shop around and find you the best deal. You don't have to make all of those phone calls. So I thought what I was selling, belief in what you were selling for me was pretty strong. Didn't feel like I needed to go to the bank and get an overdraft and pay unnecessary interest until I put my toe in the water with my 20 grand I had to try and get it started, and it worked.
So you haven't taken any investors on at all along the path, or what about bank debt?
No, we've got plenty of bank debt in the assets that we've got with the builds we've got, but taken no investors on. I've applied for a couple, this will probably get edited out, I've applied for a couple of government grants, which I thought we would have been sort of very much aligned with. We're in the old age care industry, we're in the health industry, but we've been knocked back a couple of times. So we've self-funded this as a family-owned business. We went to one bank in particular. They've been very supportive of us through our projects, and they look after us, and we just borrow the money and make sure that it works and do our maths. It's pretty basic maths. The banks want you to do 50 pages of this and 50 pages of that, but at the end of the day, if you've got a pencil, a calculator, and a piece of paper and you do the math, you'll know if it's going to work or not.
Yeah. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Mate, that's a good question. I'd like to go into our industry 10 times bigger than I am now because the bigger companies in our industry are pulling back services. So if I had a chance, my business is pretty much solely based in Tasmania. It's 95% Tasmania, 5% Queensland, which is where I reside. I think I look at the way the larger multinational companies are handling freight, handling their freight networks, handling their staff, handling the way they service customers, and they're pulling back services. They continue to pull back services, which is why my business continues to grow, because people don't want the 1300 number and getting a different person every second day. So if someone turned up tomorrow and said, here's $20 million, I'd invest that on the mainland and I would put together a freight network where everybody does what they say they're going to do. Things arrive when they're supposed to arrive. Now, there might be people out there listening to this podcast saying, oh, that would never happen. The reason it would never happen is because the bigger companies who used to say, we live to deliver and we do this, that, and the other, and they pull back to the degradation of their service and to the detriment of their customer base, but their customer bases are a little bit hamstrung with what they can use in Tasmania and in Australia. I believe, mate, if I had the opportunity, I'd roll out something 10 times bigger than I've got now, and a lot of people would go, thank God for that.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Most stressful point. I think a couple of stressful, you always need to make sure that you're looking after your team. A stressful thing for me is when somebody in our organisation looks as though they're not happy and they might want to move on, which doesn't happen. People paying you on time is always really stressful. If you're running on a pretty skinny budget, I think making sure that you've got your creditors and debtors lined up can be very stressful. If you're running a tight budget and you don't have an overdraft, you need to really keep on top of your finances and make sure that your 30-day or whatever your trading terms are adhered to. And that's an educational process. Like we've got suppliers and they phone us up at the end of each month, even though we pay them on time every time. They've got people in their office that phone up to make sure that we pay on 30 days.
Yeah.
We're a little bit more liberal than that. So we might have to chase people on 45, 55, whatever it is, just because that's the nature of us and how we are. But that's a stress point. If you're tight for funds, you need to definitely make sure that you're on top of that. Otherwise, you can go out the back door and people go, why did that successful business go broke? It's like because they were owed too much money and they didn't have the means to get the money in.
Yeah, a shit ton of profitable, good businesses go under because they don't manage their cash flow.
Absolutely. It's so important. And I think, if you don't want to be the person, I always used to have to phone people and so I was out selling them my services and then I was looking like, hang on a minute, Steve, you're out here selling us your service and you're ringing us up chasing us for money. So I had to pull myself away from that and get somebody else to do that because it just didn't sit right being a business owner who was servicing the account, then ringing them up, hassling them for money. So I needed to outsource that. So that's quite stressful trying to manage that.
Yeah. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Definitely myself. And I mean, there's probably other questions in line with this, but my initial thought process, I had a business coach. First question he said, what's the most important thing in your business? I said, customers. And he went, we need to sit down and have a chat. And when he explained that I had to work on myself the most, I think I was a bit pig-headed in that space back then. Actually, I don't think I was. I know I was.
Yeah. And
it's not because I thought I knew everything, but I had this attitude of like, mate, I've only just met you and you want to come and tell me how to run my business. One of the biggest mistakes I would have ever made would have been not taking up the opportunity to listen to that and go, hang on a minute, Bullfed. Get your head out of your backside, so to speak, and have a listen to what other people have to say, because you might think you're good at what you're doing, but maybe you're not as good as you thought you were, or maybe you are in that sort of niche area, in that specific area, but if you broaden your business and broaden your outlook, maybe you're not as good as you think you are across all aspects of your business.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Not a lot. I've enjoyed nearly all of it. I enjoy least demonstrative customers. Yeah, because I think people can break you down constantly. I think some people, and as I said to you before in our early discussion, I'm a black and white sort of guy, but I think some customers were put on the earth each day to just go and break the balls of their suppliers. Yeah, I think they were. I think there's still people that do that. So to me, it was like, you're trying to generate revenue and grow your business, and you've got a core group of clients that you don't really want. So the challenge for me was to front up to those people each week, each month, whatever it was, walk into the office and go, mate, if I was a millionaire, I don't think I'd have you as a client. So the challenge for me was really, how do I deal with those different people? And I was listening to one of your podcasts. I think it was Mark Horstman was saying, you can change your whole thought process and the way you deal with people to make sure that you're like a chameleon, and you need to be that in that space. But if you've got customers that you just don't want, dealing with them on a day-to-day basis is quite stressful and can be a challenge until such time as you go, you know something, we don't need your business anymore. And they go, well, I'll take my business elsewhere. And it's like, good. Give someone else the headache that you give me.
Yeah.
And if you build your business to a size where you can be selective of the client base you want and have your A-class client, and I don't mean revenue-wise, I mean your A-class client by personality.
Yeah.
You might have a D-class client that might be one of your biggest spenders. If they're a D-class client in the way they treat your staff, the way they speak to you, the way they pay their bills, give them to someone else. Give them to one of the multinationals who reckon they don't care anymore to look after, because that's good. They can have that revenue and see how that goes for you.
Yeah, you don't want to do business with arseholes, that's for sure.
True thing.
You mentioned Mark Horstman a minute ago. We had him on episode 86. I highly recommended the audience to get into his podcast. It's the #1 downloaded business podcast on the internet. So Manager Tools, great resource for developing yourself and your team as managers.
Yeah, good listen.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
Look, I'll harp on about the team. I just love the people. We have Christmas dinners and we have meetings and stuff like that. And I always like to say, if I walk into a room and someone walked in and saw our whole crew there, I don't want them to pick who owns the business. They just walk in and there's a group of people sitting there and they go, wow, those people just look like they're all mates. So to me, to grow the business, getting back to what a successful business looks like, of course you've got the freedom and flexibility to do what you want to do. And if you said to me, Steve, do you want to go out for a counter meal on Saturday night, and we're going to buy an expensive bottle of malt whiskey, I don't have to look in my back pocket to see if I can afford that. So it's enjoyable not having to worry about life in general and the cost of living and all of that stuff we go with. And I certainly have great empathy for people that look at interest rate hikes and things like that, and they look at it and go, goodness me, we're going to struggle. So for me, I feel lucky. I feel a bit privileged to be in that space, but growing the business and wondering as we grow, wondering what the next person is going to be that can come into our team. Well, it's like building a really good football team and you go, we need another really good player. Who are we going to get? And you get that player and go, this bloke's an absolute gun because he fits into the position we want to put him into. So that excites me about just building the team. And that doesn't come from looking at the numbers at the end of each month that I look at. That comes from just growing and being part of that crew of people.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
The biggest mindset, probably what I said before, probably understanding that I'm not the be-all and end-all of what the business is. So the business has grown and the business has expanded in different areas. And my background is freight. So I grew up driving trucks, vans, courier vans, and I'm quite affable, so I talk to everybody. My kids always say, Dad, is there someone that you don't know? It's like, no, but if you don't find out about people, if you don't talk to people, you don't find out about them. So I'm that sort of guy. But at the end, what was the question? You might have edited this bit.
The biggest mindset shift.
I think the biggest mindset shift for me was understanding that maybe a business coach or someone that wasn't necessarily in my field could add their expertise to my business purely and simply by helping me understand what I didn't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And I thought I knew more than I probably did. So the biggest shift for me was like, dude, learn more about you rather than just trying to continually learn about your business. Because if you learn about you, your business is going to be enhanced, and the people that come through the business are going to be supported and enhanced as well by learning stuff that's outside of your business rather than just having that focus all the time wholly and solely on the business as a structure.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I think I made a note on that. I think the number one habit is to constantly monitor where you can be better. I think so. I mean, sometimes the opposite of what the question is the answer. Don't settle for mediocrity by just doing the same thing all the time. So the biggest habit you can have is look at yourself each month, each quarter, however often you want to do that. And your habit should be, have I stagnated? Does that mean that my staff aren't seeing any improvement in me? Does it mean I'm not supporting my staff? Have I improved in areas that I can now go and pass on to my team? So the biggest habit is to continue learning, and that can be through, I've listened to quite a few of your podcasts, and like I'll listen to other people, and other people can be a great source of knowledge and influence to you. So the habit is to not settle for just being the same as you were yesterday. And I don't say mediocrity because I'm sure that there's a lot of people that aren't mediocre in their business, but if you just keep doing, you keep getting what you've been getting.
Yeah.
So make a habit of improving yourself, which will flow on through your business and through the other people that are working alongside you.
Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yes, we've had a lot of additions. We've been lucky, I guess. We've had people that have sort of fallen in our lap to a degree, but you can also create a role for a good person. And rather than employing someone that may have the absolutely brilliant skill set you're after, but they're the wrong personality, if we bring in the right personality, we've found that that's a better way for us to structure our workforce, have a look at what we think they bring to the table, teamwork if they're going to fit. We've had one really bad mistake we made. We employed 2 ladies once at the same time. We needed 2 people, and they were so good, we employed them both. After 2 weeks, they didn't like each other. Then the problem for us was, which one goes? The difficulty, the challenge there was that we thought they were both really good, and in their individual spaces, what they brought to the table was fantastic. Personality-wise, they just didn't like each other, but not one of them said, if she doesn't go, I'm going. So we were sort of pushed into a corner of which one to get rid of. So don't ever employ 2 people at the same time that are put alongside each other. Yeah. That's really risky. But I think if you find a person that brings honesty to the table in the interview, you can generally judge if you've got the right character to then build them into the role that you think that will suit them, rather than just going, this is the role, you'll be right, just because they bring the good skill set to the table, because I don't think that's necessarily the way to go.
Yeah. What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Okay, the culture in the business, my recommendation is this. There's 3 words. I wanted to roll this out in our chat today, and I'm not sure if this is the right time, but there's 3 words I don't use in my business. The first one of them is boss. So in a business culture in my business, no one is the boss. I'm not the boss. I own the business, but I'm not the boss. Busy? Lots of people are busy, burn busy. If someone tells you they're busy every day, I'll bet you for 365 days a year, they'll tell you they're busy.
Yeah.
And they will. Even on a day when their phone's not ringing, you'll talk to them, how you going? Busy. And the word assume is something you should take out of your business. So if I take out busy, boss, and assume, the culture in my business is that there's no boss, there's leaders in different areas, and there's supervisors. Are you really busy? I've got a little bit on. But if you are busy, don't brag about it and tell everyone that you're busy every 25 minutes, because if someone rang up and said your kid's a crook, you'd go home and look after your kids, as you should. We're a family-focused business. But when you came back the next day, the building hasn't fallen down, you still get your work done, and you go home the next day and everything's okay. So the culture around the business is make sure people enjoy coming. And if someone rang up your staff tomorrow and offered them 10 or 15% more money to go and work for the opposition, I like to think the culture should be so great at your business that they say, no, it's not all about the money. I love where I am. So the culture is teamwork. Everyone supports each other. Laughter. In our interviews, I'd say to people, if you don't like fun, frivolity, the occasional swear word and dirty joke, you should leave now, because you're probably the wrong person for us to be interviewing.
Yeah. On that point on pay, a lot of HR surveys show that pay is the fifth reason why someone works at a business.
Yep. And I would, I would agree that would be right unless you're a money chaser. If you're a money chaser, if you just want to keep on earning more money, but then you've probably missed the boat. I mean, I'm sure that everybody that's been at an employer's situation, whether they're working for themselves or they're an employee, if they get up each morning and someone says, hey, mate, would you like extra money, or would you like to go and be really happy what you're doing? Yep. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. So the culture is really important, and it's just around fun, laughter, frivolity, get the work done. No one's the boss word. No one should ever be looking over someone, beating them up with a big stick and saying, what did you do today? Yeah. Show us your productivity. It's like, leave them alone and support them, and you'll get the productivity without even have to ask for it.
Totally agree. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Work-life balance?
Yep.
It took a while. When I was working early days, and I mean, this may have been a mistake, but maybe I had to work such hours just to grow the business. I worked from home for the first couple of years, and it was a little 2-story A-frame house. So I'd come home after a pretty long day on the road, and then I was doing all the invoicing myself, and I'd sit upstairs, and the kids would be downstairs and say, when are you coming downstairs, Dad? So I'd go downstairs, have dinner. My kids were only pretty small at the time, though, maybe 6 and 4, maybe a little bit older. And then I'd go back to work. So the failure there, the error I made there, was thinking that I was at home while the kids were in the same house. I thought that I was present, but I wasn't. So the balance took a while for me to get. But in the end, it's just a mindset where you just go, you know something? I'm turning off the computer. It's 6 o'clock. It's time to have tea with the kids. And I'm not going to start work tomorrow morning until 8 o'clock. And I'm going to take kids to the bus stop, get them off to school. When they come home at 5:30, 6 o'clock, we're going to sit down and have dinner as a family. And that became a really important thing. It still is in our house. My kids don't live here anymore. But when they come, they go, oh, Dad, we've got to sit down and have the family dinner. It's like, that's what my nan, that's what we used to do in the olden days. And I'm pretty old school. So it took me a little while to get that. But I think if you focus on your family, you find the balance purely because you need to, because life's short. Yeah. And if you just keep focusing on your business every day, and your kids go, Dad's not listening, I wanted to get my homework done. Or your wife's going, yep, he's so into his business, we don't get to spend any time together. You need to jump out of yourself and go, surely it's not that important. If I've got a business that takes, 6, it's either the wrong business or I need to employ other people to help me because I'm just spending too much time doing it. I saw one of your quotes, and it's an old quote. You live to work, you don't work to live. Or is it the other way around? Whatever. Yep. But, mate, so it took a while, but once I focused on family, it became pretty simple that my balance was out of whack initially, and once I got that focus right, I then got my work-life balance pretty well sorted.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Quite a bit through listening to going, lots of meetings, lots of different forums and so on and so forth, lots of sales meetings over the journey. And then maybe a few years into the business, we enlisted the services of a business coach, and that was very much as much personal as it was professional. But that was really another light bulb moment, I guess, as far as that professional development and how I could improve going forward and assist myself grow the business without doing my head in and sort of trying to work in that goldfish bowl head where it's just a massive stuff in your mind and you can't share it, or someone's not giving you the knowledge on how to get yourself out of that goldfish bowl head so that you're an improved model, I guess, going forward on a professional and a personal level.
Now, you've mentioned you've had coaches, including Mick, before. Anything else on mentors or coaches you want to share with the audience?
Look, I had a coach. Mick actually introduced me to a guy by the name of Mick Hawes. And I'm going to mention Mick Hawes because I actually sent Mick a text message only about 6 months ago, and I hadn't spoken to Mick for quite some time. And I said, mate, I'm just sending you a quick text to thank you for what you gave to me over the years, because when I was in it, some days I would leave that and didn't think it was anything beneficial would come out of those meetings. But maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the track, I look back on those and they were invaluable. So Michael Dennehy, who you work alongside, he invited me into his office one day and said, I've got a bloke that I want you to meet. He's a business coach. And this is when I said to you earlier on, I think I had to get my head out of my own backside, because I walked in and introduced us. Mick Hawes said, Mick Hawes, what's the most important thing in your business? I said, our customers are always the most important thing. He said, we need to do a little bit of work. And I sort of thought, and I left the meeting and Mick Dennehy rang me and said, what did you think? And I said, mate, I don't think the bloke's got any idea about my business. He said, I think you need to sit down and have a coffee with him and have a bit more of a chat. So I sat down and had a chat. And Mick Hawes listens to everybody. Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, or Jim Collins, you name it. He listens to all of these people, but he pulls apart these little interesting bits of knowledge that he can then share with people like me.
Yeah.
And rather than me having to listen to 50 cassette tapes like he did back in the 70s, or listen to DVDs or log into Zoom meetings, he just brought that to the table. So we would have think tank meetings every month with other businesses. And sometimes you walk away from those and you probably put in more than you thought you'd taken out. But years down the track, the benefit that I got from those learnings they only came to fruition then. And one of the most important things was turning that business model upside down, where the customer's always the most important thing. Became the most important thing. Then my next layer of management were supported by me. Then our staff were supported by that layer of management, who then in turn go out and service the customer, because the support model starts with me at the bottom of the model, not at the top, looking down and saying customer's always right, customer's most important, because it's actually not right, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
So when we conduct our quarterly or our monthly meetings, Michael Dennehy, who is our advisor, Michael sits in on the meetings with myself, my business partner Julie, and our two managers at work. Mark Clark's our freight branch manager, and Neil Roberts, who's been with us for, goodness me, 15 or more years now. Neil's our warehouse manager, so everyone has their individual role. But yes, when we sit down, we have a board of 4 people in our business, and Michael Dennehy's in those meetings. So 5 people bouncing ideas around the table.
Yep. And do you have a chairperson on the board?
No, we don't. We probably use Mick Dennehy not as a chairperson. With 13 people, we like to keep it pretty simple. We think we can overdo the meetings that we have, and at the end of the day, it's more input, and we have maybe a mediator rather than a chair. So we don't have a huge board. It's more operational type meeting, chatting about how we think we can improve the business operationally and what we need to put in place and what strategies we need to build it. We just get Mick in as that third party to be part of those board meetings, I guess.
All right, Steve, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
The hardest thing?
Yep.
Making the right decisions every time you get to a crossroad. I think every business we've found that we've got there, you just meander along. Business takes care of itself, and invariably every business will get to a crossroad at some stage. Then another one, then another one, then another one. The hardest thing there is making sure that you make the right decision, and that might be that you've got to put $50,000 into an investment into your business to buy a product that might take you into, the next level of, if you're a manufacturer. Do you have $100,000 to go and buy the piece of equipment that you know that you need, but you're worried your finances may not be able to afford that? So I think the hardest thing in growing a small business is when you get to the crossroad, and everyone in a small business gets to them at least once, is making sure that through those group meetings or through discussing or learning, that you take the right fork when you get to that crossroad.
Favourite business book which has helped you the most?
I've got it in front of me. It's called The Rules of Management. And the reason I like it is because every chapter has like a subheading, and you can look at the subheading and go, yeah, I think that's worth reading. So instead of having to read the whole chapter or the whole book, you can go back to it and select, like I'm looking at one here, it says, if you can't find anything good to say, then say nothing at all. So sometimes you have to accept that bosses don't know what they're doing. Little subheadings, it's probably 15 years old. It's by Richard Templer. It's called The Rules of Management. That's one that I do refer back to on a pretty regular basis. I like that.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Well, I'm listening to quite a few of yours now, so that's giving you a bit of a plug, because some of them are really good. But to me, I reckon I listen to the Howie Games a fair bit because I really like listening to some sports people on there. I think there's a lot of synergy between sport, how people handle the stresses of sport, how people are managed in sport, and how people manage sportsmen. So I've got Alex Rance, James Hurd, Erin Phillips, Nick Rewalt, Jamie Carr, Jana Pittman's an interesting one. Emma Carney, the triathlete, that's a really interesting one. Like, she wouldn't take no for an answer in her pursuit of greatness. And she admits herself that wasn't always the greatest way to go about things. Jeff Fennick. So I do listen to a lot of sports podcasts, but out of that I take quite a bit of business learning as well as being interested in sport across the board.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
One tool. I think really, I don't know a tool. I mean, these days there's so many tools at people's, fingertips that they can use. I just wrote down here, take your time and don't make hasty decisions without thinking or getting advice from external parties. So that's not so much a tool, it's more a word of advice.
Yep.
If you think you're making a hasty decision, I guess it's like buying a house. Is it the right one? Is it the right car? And sometimes it's not. But if you ask other people that are experienced in business, they can be your greatest tool. It doesn't have to be a tangible thing. It doesn't have to be a podcast or a material product. It can be other people's experience and advice that can be a really good tool, with regard to growing your business.
Finally, my favourite question: what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Well, what if I could go back to day one now?
Yeah.
You don't know everything. Work hard, but work smart, and be honest. Be really honest. I think honesty and sincerity and believe in what you're selling. Anybody can smell someone that's selling something they don't believe in. So, as I said to you before, mate, I'm a black and white guy. So what I put on the table to people is what I believe in. And if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't sell it. And that can be anything. So, to myself, make sure that I just uphold a level of integrity that I'd be happy with buying from someone. And then after that, make sure that I service them. So I guess that's what I did at the start. My advice, if I was starting that from day one, would be make sure you broaden your horizons to grow both personally and professionally through other people supporting you, either face-to-face, online, through podcasts, because you don't know everything that you think you know. Even though you're in your business, there's many people out there that can teach you other things about yourself that aren't necessarily focused on your business model. I have a saying. I noticed lots of quotes were written down by people in the business. Don't be busy being busy is one thing, but there's an interesting thing I like to put forward. Interested people are interesting.
Yes.
If you turn that around the other way, it doesn't work. So it's interested people are interesting. If someone's interested in your story in business, generally they're a pretty interesting person to get involved with or to talk to. If you swap that on its head and go interesting people are interested, well, they're probably not. Some of them may not be. So if you go in to talk to someone in business and they're interested in you, get their story because they're probably interesting. So my quote for the day would be, interested people are interesting. I live by that and I love that saying.
Great. Well, thanks very much for your time today, Steve. I think the audience get a lot of value. I think the audience get a lot of value out of what you've shared with us. Phenomenal growth over the last 22 years, starting out on your own. Now you've got 13 FTE, going from about $100,000 top line to now just cracking the $10 million mark. So congratulations again to you and the team.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate your time. And it's great to be on your podcast. Thank you.
And for our audience, we would greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcast help with their growth will find us.